Honestly, like you look really handsome considering you don't have them. Most people look like Neanderthals when you take their eyebrows away. Maybe you should start penciling them on.
I had Crystal do it. She goes, let me just give you eyebrows. I didn't even make it out of the bathroom. My daughter, she looks up and she just goes, what's up with your eyebrows? Welcome to the Creative Slash Podcast, where we explore what happens when creativity collides with everything else. I'm Brad Woodard, and I'm joined here with my good friend and co-host, Dustin Lee. Whether you're an artist looking to grow your following or you're just curious about where creativity can take you, this is your weekly dose of real talk about making it as a creative human. In today's episode, Dustin and I sit down and discuss what it really means to take risks in your creative career. You know, the kind you take when you quit your job, or you start something new, or you just decide to bet on yourself. From surprise tax bills to quitting your stable gig because an online class blew up, we unpack the hidden trade-offs of freelancing, hiring help, and how risk is completely relative. If you've ever wondered, am I playing it too safe? Or is this leap actually as risky as it feels? Then this one's for you. Enjoy.
How are you doing? Feeling good? You're super happy all the time. I'm sensing negative vibes. At first, I thought I could sense the negative vibes from you in text messages because you would do all lowercase. And then I realized you're one of those people that everything you ever write, you write lowercase. It's I don't know. It's so hard for you to start the sentence with uppercase. What is even happening? What is that? Is it stylistic, or is it that you don't want to push all cap, or you don't want to push the caps button?
There's just too many other things I have to do. I mean, I feel like I can just shorthand it, just get it out there. It's not like it's to a client or anything. It's just to you, Dustin.
It makes everything come across as like so low effort. Like when I was like, so should we try to record this podcast? Say you're like, yeah, with a lowercase y. Sounds like the most unenthusiastic, like, sure, dude.
Okay, well, for the record, this week has been weird only because I got jury duty, and I never ever had to go in. I just call in, and then they always say, well, nope, your group number wasn't, selected. But this time mine got picked twice, and it just takes up half your day. I mean, you go in at like 8 a.m. and they don't tell you until like 11:30 that you can leave. So you have to go and do all 50 of us walk in, and they, go back and forth to tell us about the case. And now I was torn because I have so many deadlines this week, and I love crime shows, and I'm like, oh, the 1 week I could have been a juror. And so I was really torn when I got in there and I heard the case. I'm like, assaulted an officer? Okay, color me intrigued. Let's hear a little bit more about this. And they're like, you can go number 30. I'm like, damn it.
Did you find yourself trying to think of what they wanted to hear to keep you on the jury?
Oh yeah, because both attorneys get asked. No, I didn't lie.
You didn't think to yourself, what do they want to hear to keep me on?
No, but people definitely were being extremed, I'm sure, just to get out of it. Like some of those questions that they asked, they're like, okay, now would anybody, after just hearing what the guy was accused of, they said with no facts, no evidence, anything yet was presented, they were like, now, would any of you make a decision right now, feel like you couldn't be, that you might be biased, and you can already know, you already have a decision made in your mind? And two people raised their hand and like, yep, I'd side with the cop. He's guilty. And I was like, oh man, they want to go home. Didn't even hear any evidence. And I was like, that's pretty wild.
It's tough because it's hard for me to imagine people that would hear anything like that and to say, oh no, I'm just totally even Steven about this. I have no opinion. I'm not swayed either way. I'm essentially the blind, weight thing of justice. Like that almost seems like you kind of want to be like, send those people home, they're lying.
Yeah. No, yeah. Everybody has some sort of bias, but I think it's like, that's the questions. A lot of the questions are like, would your bias or would your experience, and they ask very specific experiences, would that affect your ability to judge someone fairly?
Okay.
And so
you're allowed to have your own way you see it.
Yeah.
It just can't be based on certain things like, I don't know, I hate cops, and therefore no matter what happens, the cop is never right. Like they're looking for very extreme biases against something that are just going to like be like what do they call it? A thumb on the scale or a finger on the scale or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, there's 50 people in there, so they have a lot to choose from. So The odds of you getting picked is pretty low anyways, because I don't know how they determine it, but you come in with they give you a number when you come in, and the higher your number, the less likely you are to be picked.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like 50 something, I mean, because there's missing numbers there, but it's out of 50. And I ended up being, in the 50s, and I was like, there's no chance I'm going to be on this. And I was right. There's no chance. Then today I was at like 30. It's like, oh man, I might be able to do it. Well, 29 and 31 got selected. I was like, oh, it's kind of bittersweet. I really wanted to see what was going on. That guy kind of looked like a villain, but I was like, I don't want to judge him right yet. They said he did something that I was like, this seems like it'd be an interesting case. I watched too much crime stuff to not be intrigued, but anyways, it did give me some faith in the system, at least, because it's just tough with all the news you hear, and it feels like there's a lot of, things just aren't fair for a lot of people, and you don't get to see that. You just hear all the injustices being done, and it's nice to see, at least in my community, that they're kind of going about it the right way, trying to be fair, trying to uphold the law, trying to give everyone a chance, and not, presume that they're guilty. And so, I don't know, give everybody a fair shake. It was kind of nice to be a part of that process and see how it worked, because it gave me a little bit of a glimmer of hope for at least my community.
It's interesting, right? Because like you watch the news, shows, all this media, right? And all of it, of course, is picked through like a bias for something interesting. And we forget that like in our day-to-day lives, like we survive based on just how mundane it really is.
Yeah.
Like nothing ever happens dangerous. Sometimes people often say, right, especially if they're parents, the days start to just blend into each other. It's the same day over and over again.
Yeah.
So it is good. It is nice. It is nice to see that about that, because I always think to myself, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for people that something happens with the justice system, because it seems like so easily it can turn into just a nightmare of things working against you.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure is the case often, but like probably not as much as
the headlines. Yeah, I feel like that's what hits the headlines, right? Those kind of injustices. And that's why I feel like it always feels like that's just how it is. Like cops are corrupt and all this stuff. And yes, there are corrupt cops, but like it's such an interesting thing to kind of just see it firsthand and to be around people firsthand, like seeing that how the whole system works, and that they're not out there just to, give people an unfair shake. So
yeah, 100%. Well,
how about you? How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I mean, it feels crazy. It feels like a lot of stuff is happening. I won't bore people with telling them the things in my life that are. It's not as exciting as going to court, potentially, being on the OJ jury or something like that, right? Like just regular stuff. But this does bring up things like risk through. I'm doing a little transition here, but it does bring up things like risk that happens in things with the criminal justice, right? Like anytime you commit a crime, like you're essentially taking a risk as to whether you will get convicted or not of it. I think they say, I heard something like 40% of the time people get away with murder.
What?
Someone in the audience tell me if that's true or not. I've heard that it's like really high. Like it's a risk.
That's crazy.
Like, you can kill someone, and like it is a risk. Like you may get away with it.
It's a calculated risk.
Yeah, like it's all your risk tolerance, along with like how comfortable you are with the idea of taking human lives.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is like if we get 100,000 people to listen to this, we would know that there definitely are some murderers.
There's statistically there are some in there.
Statistically, there's definitely some murder. Oh, okay, I'm getting off though. So we're talking about risk here. We're going to go to a nice, relaxing little story about risk. It's called "The Old Farmer and His Horse." I originally heard this from Alan Watts, the spiritual entertainer from the 60s and 70s, who kind of introduced the West to Eastern philosophy. If you've never heard him, go listen to him. It's like ASMR. It's so relaxing. But this is a Taoist parable, The Old Farmer and His Horse. And it goes, once upon a time, there was an old farmer in a small village. One day, his horse ran away. Risk. We're talking about risk here. His neighbor came to console him and said, "What bad luck?" And the farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not." A few days later, the horse returned, and bringing with it several wild horses. And the neighbors exclaimed, "What good luck?" And the farmer said, Maybe so, maybe not. Soon after, the farmer's son tried to ride one of the new horses and he was thrown off and broke his leg. And the neighbors came by once more and said, "What terrible luck." And the farmer calmly says, "Maybe so, maybe not." A week later, soldiers come through the village to draft all the able bodied young men into the war. And because the farmer's son had a broken leg, he's left behind, doesn't have to go. And the neighbors cried, "What good luck." And again, the farmer said, "Maybe so, maybe not." The whole idea of this, I think, just being a fantastic kind of way to think about risk and what we do in our life, whether we pursue certain goals in our careers, whether we have a meltdown or let it just destroy our peace because something happened, we get audited or something like that or not. But I don't know. What do you think about what that farmer is saying right there?
Well, for me, I think it's a great, it's like a parable almost, but I think that's what's cool about that is like, you know, I think oftentimes what happens is like with me, especially, is I get high anxiety around certain things. Like when things go, things go wrong, like this happens all the time. I mean, it happens all the time in life, but if we're kind of comparing it, if I want to use a story from, my own like creative career, like when I first started my own business, when my wife and I started Brave the Woods, the first year we operated without setting aside estimated taxes. And yeah, obviously it's a huge oversight because you just don't realize until the end of the year, because I've always had employers taking that out, right? And you don't think like, clearly I didn't think, but
wait, how do you even do that? Because if it's your first year in business, how could you even estimate what your taxes would be?
I don't know. You have to put some stuff aside, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I know you do most years, but it made me think to myself, how do you even guess
the
it
first
if it's your first year?
Yeah, that's
I suppose they just assume to themselves, please just estimate the most biggest amount you can, and we'll give it back to you if we owe it to you.
Yeah. No, yeah. See, we didn't have like a payroll services or anything like that at that time. After that, though, this kind of encouraged us to look at our business. So we were thousands and thousands of dollars that we owed the government because we did particularly well that first year. That was, if anybody knows the story, I put my first Skillshare class up right when Skillshare was new, made lots of money, quit my job at an ad agency that I was working at, and moved to Texas with my wife, and we started our own business. And that kind of gave me that opportunity. But with that came a lot of taxes. And so I felt, luckily we had put a lot of that aside. So it was just sitting in our account, and then it looked a lot smaller after that. But, looking at the positive side of that, we just wait a little longer. Like, I think that story is very relatable because, right off, it's like I could have, my knee jerk reaction was just like, oh my gosh, we're sunk. We just thousands of dollars we don't have. But luckily, we did it, and then our business was still moving along. We were able to kind of, it worked out. But it really helped us step back and be like, okay, this is like, it's not like freelancing like it was before, where it's just, there's things we need to protect ourselves. We need to plan for things. And so that helped us kind of take a big deep dive into how to operate our business. And then we ended up getting payroll services who took that out for us. They manage your estimated taxes for you. And then we got, later on, other issues arose, and then we had to go get somebody to do our taxes. And so, yeah, that's such a great story. Because like, I think if you're looking at it in the moment, then it could be really quite the setback, but that can hold you back. Like if we sat there and just said, that's it, I don't want to take this risk anymore. Like, the first year, all of a sudden, all that money's out. I could have just like said, I'm going to go find a job and not deal with this. And, but ended up, sticking it out. It ended up being a lot better for me.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like I've thought about that too, like with taxes or things like that. So of course, like the immediate thing you think when you have to pay taxes is, this sucks. Why do they need this much money? I can't believe it's going to cost this much to replace the toilet. Like Donald Trump wants the toilet replaced in the airplane and Air Force One. And that's like my entire life's worth of taxes that I pay on a single toilet replacement. You think all these things, right? But then I have also thought to myself, man, like, but you get an education on actually paying taxes. Like every time you pay taxes, and it doesn't mean you should go around being a sucker, right? But like every time you pay taxes, like you have under your belt the experience of how you manage paying taxes.
Totally.
Which makes you better at dealing with taxes and planning for financial situations. And you actually kind of gain a superpower. So like,
yeah,
was it risky, or was making the business and having the taxes to pay risky, or was it actually that it gave you a benefit? It really depends on at what point you decide to look at it.
Oh yeah. This was a big thing that I talked to a lot of people about this because, there's a lot of people out there, I think a lot of creatives that really, especially like in-house creatives that might really admire these freelance creatives or that run their own businesses and things. And there's a lot,
I feel like they always do.
Yeah, I mean, I understand.
Remember when we
I
talked
understand
to we talked to one of our guests recently. They were like, I'm making a conference for this because in-house creatives don't get enough.
That was Armin Vitt.
Right, yeah. Armin. Because literally so many people are like, well, if I was really good or if I was like really successful at this, I'd be freelancing, or I would have my own business doing it.
Yeah.
Which is not true, of course, but like it does. It tends to like you said, to your point. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
no. That was just to your point is all I was saying.
No, it's very alluring. I think there's this temptation to Hollywoodize it a little bit, like in our minds, like when we first look at it, like, oh my gosh, they have all this freedom and they have all this whatever. And a lot of those things are true, but they're not true in the way that you think they are.
Oh yeah.
And
they are true, yeah.
Yeah, there are freedoms, but also you want to go on vacation, you're not getting paid. No one's working for you, no one's covering for you while you're out of town, right?
And you never get to not think about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was like, just jury duty. They were asking, does anybody have any reason why they can't be here? Like, we can give you a note to your employer or whatever. And I was like, that doesn't help me at all. I have all these deadlines this week, but I have to be here and I can't have anybody else do it. But I also have my civic duty. But yeah, there's situations like that. So I thought this would be something that'd be really interesting to talk about because I feel like you and I both have taken major risks and a lot within our creative careers, and we don't follow the typical paths that that at least I was on to start. And I think and you were the same. We kind of, I think initially it's easy to kind of see what the plan is placed before you. Like, this is the typical path. Like, you become a designer, then you become a senior designer, and then art director and creative. You work your way up the ladder. And I mean, I was
even
very much
like a risk, right? Like our parents oftentimes don't want their kids to get into art things, and they say do design or something like that because it's less risky. But even then, it's kind of risky because not everyone can be an art director. There, by definition, needs to be more people that are going to be working under an art director. So even that's risky. So then the idea of being like, actually, I'll just go out on my own and just get paid independently to do it can feel very risky. Well, arguably, so. I think I would argue it's not risky, which we were going to kind of talk about. Is it risky or is it not risky?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the core of this conversation because you and I think we were both, this is something that we both dealt with. And so for me, this felt like a less risky option. And why? And it was my own experiences just growing up. I felt like my dad worked for the man, he worked for a bunch of different large companies, and I remember him getting let go a bunch of different times, not fired, let go, but just because they would downsize or whatnot. And a handful of times as a kid. And I remember being very stressed out by that. And also that was my experience was if you work for somebody, you could be let go, even if you're doing a great job at your job, there's not any rhyme or reason. It's just, they had to downsize or whatever it was. I felt like that was really risky. And so I tried going the route of like going to these different, working in the ad agency more to get experience, thinking that maybe I could do it. And then I realized, oh, it's just as risky. The people next to me, especially in the ad world, there's a high turnover, lots of attrition with the different, with the employees. So I didn't feel like that was very secure. So for me, freelancing feels like I can control, even if it's chaotic, I can control things.
Now, when you did though, like, so you were working, I know your story pretty well.
Yeah.
Because we've been friends for like 10 plus years, I think. Has it? We've been friends for like a long time. Maybe
over,
that long. Yeah, no, it has to be. Yeah,
over 10 years. Yeah.
So you were working at an agency, and then you had done a Skillshare class, or a couple of them, they asked you to do it.
Yeah.
They pushed it. It was it was my first thing I ever bought off Skillshare way back when Skillshare was not a subscription. You bought the classes individually.
Yep.
It was one of the first things I paid for with money. like towards my design career, which was your
I appreciate
class,
that.
and it was on color, if I remember correctly. And I remember it had like a little, it was like a little bay ocean scene, and
Yeah.
you were doing with the colors. Anyways, you do that, and you end up making like a windfall essentially from it. I have a similar thing happen
Mhm.
with Creative Market. They're pushing it. You're talented. They have the audience
It's
to
timing.
attract.
Just good
It's
luck and timing too.
did that feel risky? So you ended up quitting what you were doing, your job, and being
Mhm.
like, I'm going to get this like windfall of money that's coming in from Skillshare, even though who knows how long this money will come in for? Who knows if people decide they don't want to get the next class, whatever. You move to Austin, you start Brave the Woods. Did that
Mhm.
feel at the time where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm taking such a big risk?
Yeah, it definitely felt like a risk. I mean,
Like
it
more
felt like
risky than a
funny
job
money. Yeah, I
at the
think because
time?
in your yeah, I mean, I think there's something subconscious about working for somebody that just felt inherently like unstable for the long term. But I didn't have enough like job experience, like working at these major companies, like outside of college. I didn't have a ton of experiences where like I myself moved jobs every year, just because something better was offered or I needed a different experience. But yeah, so I think I was like, okay, maybe it's not so bad. But then, you start once I got into advertising, that's when I started seeing a lot of people losing their jobs around me, and I was like, whoa! Like my first job was a startup, so we were all growing, and then this ad agency, people were dropping all over the place, and I was like, this is not as secure as I thought it was. And so, yeah, I was kind of looking for a way out, and I was looking for a different lifestyle too. Like since I just had my first kid, and I wasn't spending a lot of time with my wife and my kid. Yeah, it was a big risk though. We both quit our jobs and moved to a different state. Started the company at the same time, and yeah, it wasn't a. I knew it wasn't that money wasn't going to stay there forever. It kind of felt like funny money that when we were getting from Skillshare, but it empowered me to because we put that money aside. We didn't spend it all.
Interesting. So,
So
so when you were doing that, you didn't think to yourself, "I'm going to keep this rolling forever. A Skillshare is going to be paying me."
no, 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 no. It
Interesting. So
gave me
I
a
kind of did. Like
cushion.
I did think,
Oh, that years would last. I mean, I thought it would last longer than it did. For the record, Skillshare quickly got wise to the situation. It was like, oh man, we can't pay the people that create this content that much, and then it really went downhill from there. But I'm glad I went into it. Like the one thing I'm happy I did was when I took that risk and started my own business, we didn't spend all that money that we'd made from Skillshare. We hoarded that away. Worked out for us because we had to pay a lot of taxes. But then also it just kind of instigated things for me. So once I could see that I could do it, like, okay, I have a little bit of a buffer to play around with this new idea, right? Starting my own company. Like, how can I do that? But I had already before this. So in terms of risk, I had already created like I didn't just quit and then just say I'm going to start freelancing. I'd been freelancing the like three years before that. I've been building up clients on the side. I've been building up my portfolio of like illustration work and things like that. So that
so at
was
that point, were you close enough where like you technically could have been like, I'm going to just freelance for a living and gone out, or was there a significant gap that felt unbridgeable?
oh yeah, that's a good question. I think it would have been really difficult. I think because there's a lot of you have to believe that there's going to be something else in the future. And you kind of have to plan that way where sometimes you just don't get new work for a while, but then you get something and it makes up the difference. You can kind of live on bootstrap for a little bit. But having that cushion of Skillshare money in the background was really, really helped me take a little bit more risk. So I think if people want to say like, oh, what can I take away from this story is like, I would say you don't, even if you're not lucky, like I got lucky at that time when Skillshare had just started and they were promoting it like crazy. That's why I made so much. I think slowly putting aside like 6 months worth of living expenses can really help you make a big leap on your own if you wanted to try that. Because then you're not as freaked out about, oh my gosh, I didn't get a job. I didn't get a huge job this month. Then it allows you to be like, okay, that's fine. I can just be more proactive now and figure out how to solve this problem, which I felt like that felt less risky. I mean, being able to be in charge of my own destiny, essentially, and corny, but Like being able to say like, oh, I have all this time. No one's sitting here telling me like, oh, I can't do anything. I can sit there and I can try to make, that's how I worked with you. You know, I had my Skillshare classes. I just made more of them. And then I connected with you, and then we started making brush packs together. And then I connected with JP from National or the Poster Retrospecticus, which is also then, you know, when it does 59 parks as well. But, you know, doing that kind of stuff, I realized real quickly that I didn't want to rely on clients. And that was the lesson I learned. And luckily I had a little bit of a buffer to learn that lesson.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. When I was getting started doing my first jobs, which were actually in banking, or I guess restaurants when I was young, and then banking. And then I actually tried to I went to community college because I already had a degree. So I went back to community college for design and things like that. And I really just tried to start freelancing. I did get a couple of jobs where I was actually going into a job like for a 9 to 5 doing graphic design, which I hated. And then I worked underneath a very small business similar to Retro Supply, and sort of learned the ropes. But the biggest advantage, and if you're listening to this, like really think about this for a second, like if you work for somebody else, they took the risk of making the business, just like you would take the risk of making the business. So it's not actually less risky. It's just that someone else took the risk and you're now operating underneath them. And now you can kind of put your fingers in your ears and not think about the risk or be aware of it. But that person took the risk and you're working under them. And guess what? If something happens, that person is going to eliminate you or otherwise manipulate how you're getting paid or how that's working
to preserve themselves.
You're way on top of the list of how they're going to manipulate that before they start doing something to themselves.
But so, to be clear, Dustin, this isn't to say you shouldn't work for someone, right?
No. It's not to say that at all. Like there's massive benefits to it. It's just making the case. I would make the case, and tell me if you agree or disagree. Okay. I would make the case that there are many benefits, maybe more benefits to working for somebody else than for working for yourself, especially for your peace of mind and just being able to go home and live the other part of your life. But it is not less risky. The idea that it is less risky to work for somebody else, I think, is largely not true. We found that to be, even when they say go get yourself a safe government job, you know, like our grandfathers told our grandfathers and grandmothers told our parents that, right? It's not safe. We've learned that over the past year. Government jobs have evaporated where people thought they would always have their government jobs and their pensions and their retirements, and those are gone. My dad worked at United Airlines for 30 years, and then 9/11 happened, and the United Airlines and all the different plane companies or airlines asked if people could get their 401k money and lend it to the airlines to help keep the airlines in business. Jeez. And then the corporate guys took the money for themselves and emptied out the 401ks of a lot of these people that worked in the airline industry. So people thought they were safe. They weren't safe. So I would say my case just is, if you're thinking, do not let the reason be that you don't go attempt to do something on your own be because you think that you're protected from risk if you don't, because that's absolutely not true. And I oftentimes find I'm able to leverage working with people, not leverage it, but you get the opportunity to work with people because they think it's risky. And so you're able to ask people, hey, do you want to do this with me? You want to partner with me on this? Do you want to do this or that? And they'll do it because they feel like they don't want to take the risk and you're taking the risk and you've already overcame some mountain, and it becomes a huge advantage. But it's really like this paper tiger. It's not a true risk. And the last thing to add to that is, remember that when you take the risk, the upside is almost endless. So if it does well, you can make 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, 100 times more than you started at. If you work for someone else, the upside is very limited. You might, if you work your butt off, double or triple your income over the course of a lifetime in terms of your annual salary, but that's it.
It's kind of like gambling, right? It's like when you're freelancing, because it's like you could make nothing, you could have no clients, or something crazy like Skillshare comes along and they're just a brand new company and want to start promoting classes, and you happen to be the only one in that area of design that you put your course up and it just goes crazy. But, but I felt that same way. Like there was lots of things promised to me when I was working at this ad agency. I keep using that because I only worked for 3 different places outside of school, but this agency, they kind of promise you like, oh, if you become art director, you get X amount of dollars, and this is how many years, kind of the path. And but yeah, then I was thinking about that. And I was like, oh, potentially though, if I went off on my own and I did all these other things, one of these things could hit and I could make a whole lot more, or I could just land a specific client and I could get paid so much more with a fraction of the time. So it's really how you assess it. It's interesting looking at other people, how they, it's easy to look at another creative and be like, oh man, they got to be doing so well. And it's such a cool thing. So freeing to be your own, to working for yourself and things. And in a way, yes, there are ways that you feel very free. But then in other ways, you're kind of like, you're tied to this anxiety of not having new work, or anytime you leave, leave the office, no one else is going to be working for you and doing that job for you. So there's a lot of things where you actually aren't free. You're kind of stuck to it, and you have to kind of know everything about it, not just the creative part. Now you have to understand the business part, and then you have to start trusting other people and bringing other people in to help you out if to really succeed, and so I don't know. I feel like it's calculated. People ask me all the time, though, do I work in house? Like, or is it like, is freelancing really like that awesome? Because it looks very tempting, but I'm like, it really depends on how you assess risk yourself. And for me, it's just, like I said, it's just this feels safer for me because I can if I don't have a client, then I can hustle in some other way, and I have the time to do that. I'm not getting paid for that time, but I don't have any obligation to going to work, and not, that's the thing. Once you're there, you can only make the amount that you're making unless you get a raise. But all your time's absorbed, into that company. Whereas here, if I don't have work, I at least have freedom and I can go and start creating money.
Right. Yeah. I remember like the biggest thing to me that stopped me from, it wasn't even stopping me from making a business. It was just like, it felt like this wall that you like knew if you could get over it, you were going to be okay. And I remember understanding it sometime in my early 30s, probably. Like the risk is that if you work for someone else, you get paid before the money comes in. If you work for yourself, you get paid after the value has been delivered, which feels riskier. So like if you're working for a graphic design studio, right? Like let's say they get a client and that client, I don't know, they're going to bill them $50,000 for some big project, and they give them 50% up front or something like that, right? 25,000. They have to pay for all the things, pay for the office space, pay for all the stuff, and you're working, and then they give you some of that. It's guaranteed to you. So you get it before they even get their final payment.
Just
right?
Showing up.
Right. It's showing up. They're taking the risk that later, when it's all done, we're going to get another 25,000, the other 50%. And then in the future, these people will come back for other jobs, which is likely if you do a good job. So the big thing is like inverting it and realizing that like it feels riskier because you're asking to deliver something before you get money. And we are trained throughout our entire lives to get oftentimes paid before something,
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, I just remember mentally thinking to myself, like, because when you do something like start a small business, you're working your butt off, getting the website going, writing the copy, getting the inventory, figuring out your offer, studying your customers. No one's paying you. No one's going to give you a paycheck for trying your best to figure it out. You only get paid after you did all of that work, put something up, and ask people to pull out their credit cards and buy it. And that feels risky. I think it's most risky when you don't have a good self-awareness of your own strengths. So for instance, with Retro Supply, I partner with like a lot of designers and illustrators. I don't try to do it all on my own. I am very aware that there are designers and illustrators that do circles around me, and to try to make certain types of products and do it myself would be a sure way to eventually fail. Like I just did not put in the time. And once I started the business, I was not going to be putting in the time to become the kind of designer, illustrator I'd need to be to make the business succeed. But I was aware of that enough and okay with that enough that I would then go acquire those talented people to do it for me. And I've been okay.
That feels like a risk. Sometimes that feels like a risk. You're the one who talked to me about it. I think it was Seth Godin that was saying like anything, take all the things that that only you can do and focus on those things, and everything else, like, delegate that to other people. And that felt like, when you said that initially, I was like, oh, I mean, that makes sense. But at the same time, it's like, that feels like a risk because I have to go and pay somebody else now to do something like our taxes, for example. We were doing even after that first year issue, for several years after that, we were doing our own taxes. And then realized it was just like, oh, it just got harder and harder and harder because I felt like I'm just not a tax expert. And I feel like I'm paying for so much when I feel like other people aren't. I don't know. And so we ended up getting someone, but you have to pay them a percentage. So I feel like sometimes that feels like a risk, bringing somebody else on to help you, or like the payroll services. And I'm like, oh, they're going to take a chunk of money, or I'm working for Closer and Closer. I'm not working for it. They're working for me technically. They're my agent, right? And so they take a chunk. They take a big cut. Yeah, that kind of stuff you have to think about. But it's like, what does it allow you to do? I think if you're taking the risk, what is it giving you back? Like, what's the return? And for me, like with Closer and Closer is a great example, because I kind of swore off agencies early on when I had a bad experience with one in my young career. But now this has been a lot better, even though I understand where that money's going and why I'm paying that percentage, because it frees me up. I don't have to deal with contracts. I don't have to follow up with the client unless I want to. All these different things that I don't have to do. And sometimes they'll bring in a good project. They manage all that. So all of that is time that I can now spend not doing all that stuff because I'm not as good as them at doing it. And I can focus on the artwork and take on more projects. They'll probably get me more money than me negotiating for myself because they're better at that. So there's those kind of things. But it's funny you mentioned that, because that feels like risk is hiring other people, but it kind of stagnate if you don't. And that's where I kind of saw my business at one point, the early years, it just kind of started to plateau. And I was like, I cannot figure out how to get past this hump. And it was like, oh, because I'm doing everything. And at this point, I need to just be like, what am I good at? And that's really important, to listen to what other people are saying, but also just know yourself and be like, okay, I'm just not good at this. And can I spend my time doing something I know I'm good at that no one else can do, that can help me make money? Okay, then that's okay. Then taking a little bit of the money to pay someone else to do that other stuff and give me time. That's what I'm getting in return, is time.
Right. And I think we're like trained from the time, I mean, we are trained from the time we're young. We're consumers. We live in a consumer society. That's how it all works, is we buy stuff. And we are typically like trained or conditioned from when we're young to be like, well, don't buy too much stuff. You need to save your money. Shopping or getting too many things is not good. And so when we start, say, a business or freelancing or doing whatever, and we pay someone else, we think of it like that. We think, well, I'm buying stuff. It's not good to buy stuff. It's good to hold on to your money, which is true when it comes to if you don't have very much money and you're buying clothes and jewelry and cars or things like that. But in a business, the risk is not the same, because you're buying your time back so you can get a return on using your time better. So it's, and on top of that, like, someone doesn't even have to be perfect for it to be worth it. So I have a bunch of people working for me. Thank the Lord, the business would not exist if I didn't have people working for me, because there's too much to do and too many things I'm bad at. But an interesting thing
about it down, right?
I could scale it down technically. Like, I probably the business would like float on its own for probably a couple of years with absolutely nobody doing anything, and you'd probably slowly just lose trust and people would forget about you and things like that. But you kind of start to get momentum. You get inertia from doing it for a lot of years, where you are putting the energy in and other people are pushing it forward with you. What was I going to? But what I was going to say is that if you're typically, when you get someone too, built into the going rate for most people, like, they don't do it themselves. It's like society does it, is that they don't have to be perfect. So it's not black or white. It's not either you hire someone and it works or you hire someone and it fails. and the whole thing sinks.
Yeah.
Typically there's a massive gray area. And if you can just get it to work pretty good, you'll break even. If you can make it work
Yeah.
even better than pretty good, you get to keep some of the money. If you get a really talented person to keep them on long enough, then you get to get a lot of money from it. I mean, you have to really have someone that, I don't know, is just smoking cigarettes and watching porn while you pay them $100 an hour. I mean, that's how you destroy your business. But if someone is trying and they have experience and you're watching them, monitoring what's going on and just even slightly, you're going to be okay, most likely. I don't know. Am I totally wrong about this? Sometimes I feel like I'm just ranting with stuff that makes no sense.
No, I think it all tracks. It's
You've hired
interesting.
people. Don't you feel like that? Like,
Well, that's what I was gonna
we were
say.
talking about someone you recently had working for you a year or so back. Like, don't you feel like you had wiggle room? They didn't have to be perfect every single time for it to work.
No, not at all. And when do you take risks? Like every time I feel like things are going well, business is growing, business is doing well, and then all of a sudden there's moments where it just plateaus. That's typically where I'm like, okay, either I suck at this and I've like everyone's up to the ruse, right? Everybody knows like, oh, they figured me out. I'm not that good. Or that's the time when I start taking more risks. Do you ever get that sense of like, oh, I want to take a big leap again, or I feel like that urge to take another big risk with my business? Do you ever get that? Is that like an antsy moment for you? I get that a lot.
What do you think of it like as a big risk? Like, what do you mean by big risk?
For me, it would be like making my own children's book. Like I've never done that before. And the only reason I did it was because I had no client work. And I was like, I have to do something. I always wanted to do children's books. I wanted to get into publishing, but no one was ever asking me. And so it felt like I just had to, at one point, just take the risk. I had to, we kickstarted it. We sent out the thing. My wife wrote it. We went through the whole process, learned about how to make books and the physical books. And it was a huge risk. It was a ton of time, but it paid off because I got lots of jobs.
Like the risk was that you might put a ton of time in, and it's time you could have had contracting for other people, and you might spend all the time on it, and then like you sell 2 books, and now you have 1,000 or 2,000 copies of books and boxes in your garage.
Yes, you have to figure out like where am I going to allot that time that I have when I have the downtime. Like that's when I start taking risks. But sometimes I feel like every time client work slows down, I start getting antsy. I'm like, oh, I need to take another risk. Like I need to start making my own courses, or I need to, maybe I need to hire somebody. Like right after things started to go well, I was like, okay, it's going well enough, but I want to grow it. I feel like it plateaued. It wasn't dipping. It was just my company was plateauing. That's why I hired someone, because I was like, maybe they can elevate what I'm doing or amplify what I'm creating here. And this could bring in more work. Maybe their work plus my work can bring in more. And it didn't necessarily work out that way, but it did save me a lot of time. And it was a really cool learning. And I also realized I don't necessarily want to grow my studio into having employees, because I realized was less freedom, because now I had to manage another person and I had to be available. And so I was like, maybe I stay this size. So how else can I grow my business, my little studio, without bringing in more employees? And that's where like passive income stuff comes in. And that's where I team up with you and I make brush packs and we do webinars together and things like that,
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, like, you know what? I think that's maybe what happens with risk, where people maybe make risk scarier than it is, because especially if you're just starting, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck, or you have enough saved for a couple months, your runway is really low, feels really risky, right? You go out and quit your job and start freelancing, for instance, or want to make a book, and you stop working to work on the book, and now you're just living off of your savings, and you have 6 months saved or a year saved. And once that runs out, if you don't sell this many books, you're in trouble. That's a risk. Like, that's a serious risk. Like, some would say like that's almost an irresponsible risk that sometimes has to be, like, I don't mean for yourself, like you had done lots of stuff at this point when you did that, but I mean,
I also did Kickstarters. I mitigated some of that risk,
Right, exactly. So that's like a very smart way, right? That's still risky, but you mitigated it. Mitigation, I think, is the huge part of it. But when you're young, like, and you're starting out and you have that year or 6 months, it's very risky, because like it may not work out. You don't have very much experience. And so that kind of risk is very scary. I think as you get older and you have more experience, the risks seem they're there, but they're less. And it feels much more. Josh Ariza said this perfect. He was like, I feel like I'm constantly putting out lots of tiny bets, and most of the bets
Yeah.
don't work. And every so often one works. And the thing is that when you're putting out lots of tiny bets, any bet that doesn't work, the money gets pulled off the table. It's no longer yours and life goes on. And that's what it feels like. It feels like you're trying a bunch of things. Nothing will break you. And you just need every so often one to work. And every time you take a risk, you learn a little more about which risks are going to be successful. So like, would I consider it risky for me to stop my business, stop running Retro Supply, and like go write a novel for the next 5 years, try to make the great American novel and not make any money, shut down Retro Supply and just do that? Yeah, that would be a huge irresponsible risk. But if we talked to Aaron Draplin and Aaron Draplin wanted to partner with us to make a conference,
Yeah.
and he was going to use all of his connections to get people to buy tickets, that's an acceptable risk.
Yeah.
It could not work, but even if it doesn't work, you win in many ways. You just got to work on something big with Aaron Draplin. You got to learn how conferences don't work, and you walk away at the end of the day, one piece. You didn't lose your house and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And there's also a really high chance, like most people, if you tell them I'm making a conference with Aaron Draplin or something like that, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be like, oh, you're going to kill it. You're going to sell so many seats.
That's how you mitigated the risk.
You mitigate the risk, right?
Yeah.
So like if you discover ways to do that. And I feel like you build buffers. And so I built an email list. You build up word of mouth and goodwill through advertising, or through you're like a master of personal connections and staying in touch with people and creating positive associations with yourself. That's risk mitigation. So then when you take a risk, it's less of a risk.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. I think people oftentimes think that risk means like you have to be playing the equivalent of Russian roulette with your financial life.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. I think that's what you think. Like, oh, you just quit your job and started your own business. Like, that's what it kind of feels like to people. I think if you haven't experienced it yourself, or you didn't do it the same way I did it, like if you're looking from the outside in, you don't necessarily see everything that I'm experiencing. Like for me, like I had confidence in myself that I could, because I've already built up some freelance work, that I could get work, on the side, enough to float me along. I also had Skillshare money to play with, right, to hold on and to keep as a cushion. So yeah, it's hard to look at other people and be like, oh my gosh, like they took this massive risk and it worked out for them. I mean, those are usually the stories that we like to hear. We hear at conferences where it worked out, and some of those seem just outrageous, but I think there's sometimes we're leaving details out in there that we're making it less risky than it was. Not every time, but I do think that there's things that we're not going in there just playing Russian roulette with our lives here. I mean, I definitely had a plan when I moved forward and did this. And
Alex Hormozy, the business bro guy that launched all the gyms and different stuff, he's big on YouTube now. He put it really well. He was like, business is a game, and the goal of the game, purpose of the game, is to not be taken out of the game. That's the whole purpose. So he's like, you can do whatever you want as long as you could stay in the game and continue to participate. So essentially, what you want to avoid, what is really, truly, truly risky, is anything you do where it will put you out of the game permanently. So if it puts you where you absolutely have nothing left, you don't have electricity, you don't have money for food, your personal relationships or family life is severely compromised, those are ones where you're taken out of the game and you can't continue. Any type of risk you take where you can wake up and recover in a week or 2 weeks and start playing the game again and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. It's like a suitable risk. Like, just don't play the ones where it's all over if it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's all or nothing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, are you less? This is an interesting one for me. Maybe not necessarily speaking about my business, but just in general. As you get older, do you feel like you're more likely to take risks because of your experience, or do you feel less likely now because you've seen so much?
Yeah.
And you're like, are you more risk averse as you get older?
I think I probably take a lot more risks on a regular basis that to someone that has not had a business or has not done it for a long time. would think to themselves is a risk, but you
Yeah.
don't think of it as a risk anymore because you realize it's actually not a risk. It's just perceived as a risk.
This is an
But
experiment.
yeah, and you realize that you can continue to play the game, right? Like you hire
Yeah.
somebody. They say hire slow, fire fast. I'm still kind of learning that. I
Interesting.
think I keep people around longer than I should sometimes.
Your
But
employees are like, wait, what?
well, but it's true though, right? And you should. Like an employee should be giving you value for what you're doing, and if
Yeah.
they're not, they probably need to go fast because if you do that enough times, the
Sneaking.
game ends, right? Like if you're paying a bunch of people that are not, it's not working out, whether it's your fault or their fault.
Yeah.
It can certainly be your fault, and they still have to go. But if you do that too much, the game ends because you can't pay that many
Yeah.
people. But
It's over.
I would say my risk aversity is highest right now because I'm in my 40s. I have kids and a family and a long runway of life ahead of me, presumably like 30
Mhm.
years, I would guess, more of life, hopefully, at least. And you don't want to risk someone else's future. So
Yeah.
I feel like you can be the riskiest early in your life, in your 20s or your teens, and then you can probably be pretty risky in your life once you're approaching death because
Yeah.
it's all ending soon anyway. So if you'd like to live the last couple of years of your life, like I stopped
Yep.
drinking years ago. Sometimes I joke that like when I hit 80, like it's time to start drinking.
You're like, this is it.
The
Doesn't
risks
matter
are low,
anymore.
man. You're right. You can see the finish line.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's funny. Like I feel like with risks, like, yeah, I'm in the same way. I start to feel a little bit more risk averse, and I'm like, oh man, I really wish I had that drive that I had before and that courage to take more risks. But at the same time, it's like I've also lost tens of thousands of dollars on risks that I've made, for like Brave Kids Club. Like I lost a ton of money trying something out for that. And I'm still paying for it. And that's kind of makes me a little bit more wary, right? But that's where I realized, like, man, I almost knocked myself out of the game because I didn't plan well enough and realize, like, oh, you have to make paying customers get them paying anything before you can expect them to pay for things like a subscription service and things that I tried to create. But that was like, I don't know, that scared me for a while. And then I felt like because of that, I was a little bit more risk averse, and my business kind of felt like it was stalling for a little bit. Even up till recently, I felt like it just hasn't grown a ton. And so now I'm getting that itch again where I'm like, there's got to be something new. My wife usually will come in. She's pretty intuitive, and kind of she'll come in and she'll be like, something good's on the horizon, something big's coming up, and I'm like, yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Something big's coming up. Now, what is it? I don't know what it is. And she's like, I don't know what it is either, but we got to figure it out. And so then that, like, I get that feeling and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start making courses, or I'm going to start, like, what are the things that I have? How can I, give it the best chance for success? Like, where's the lowest hanging fruit, And so that's where I'm at right now. So this conversation is really timely because
I feel like
I'm
that
kind
too.
of
And
getting.
then I feel like it ties really well into like the Taoist farmer story, right? Because like we've talked about this with Brave Kids Art Club. You spent a lot of time, probably the most valuable thing that you traded was time and then
Mhm.
money, of course, to make Brave Kids Art Club. You came out the other end like with a really cool product. You learned a lot about filming, a lot of
Yep.
different things. You did not make your money back.
TV show
But
pitches, everything. Yeah.
But that's where the farmer thing comes up. Like, you don't know that like in 5 years that someone sees it and acquires it, or that becomes the essentially the
Yeah.
pilot or the prototype for them acquiring that because some new network comes out that's the equivalent of Skillshare was years ago, but it comes out as like a competitor to Netflix or something like that with educational things
Yeah.
for kids and for the arts and culture, and they see that and there's not many people that put the work into doing that, and then it becomes something that has a huge return on investment. Or it could be that we're doing this podcast. Like I'll feel like this podcast oftentimes I'm like, man, right now, for instance, we're doing a podcast where we're talking a bunch. I can't heat map out how interesting it is or how much people listen to, but I have a good feeling about it because I'm like, I have an entrepreneurial background, you have an entrepreneurial background, you have a YouTube thing behind you, a YouTube's plaque, and I'm like, and we're starting to build up an email list, we're starting to build up followers. that's a valuable asset, man. Talk about something that will pay for itself. If you can get people interested and caring, even if it's at a slow pace, like eventually it will work out.
And you don't know you have no clue sometimes what that payout's going to look like. And,
and it's foolish to try to guess sometimes. Like it's oftentimes better to look and assess after you see what you've got, like you let people come in, you watch where people go in your shop and what they look at. You look at what they listen to or what they write you. We've gotten emails about the podcast, and you pay careful attention, and then you figure out, in my opinion, that's how I think is a great way to do it, is you watch where things naturally flow. And instead of fighting and forcing people to go where they don't want to go, you try to look at where they're going, and then you use that as your opportunity.
This is the same spiel you gave me and you told me about Brave Kids. It was Brave Kids Art Club is what you call it, because that's what it was originally called, and that's on the plaque. But I changed the name to Brave Kids Club because you were talking to me about, well, I don't understand, like, what, because I was kind of getting stuck. I was like, I don't know where this is going. I've been doing this for 5 years. I have no clue where it's going. It feels like all my ideas, I'm thousands of dollars in debt because of this TV show idea that I tried. And now I tried to do a subscription service. That failed as well. And so I was like, I don't even know. I'm just putting money and throwing things at the wall, and it's just not sticking. And then you were like, you shared that with me. You're like, there's this whole, was it a Chinese proverb or something about just like following the river, stop fighting the current, just kind of figuring out where things are going and go. I don't know what it was. But
sounds so pretentious, but that sounds like me.
Yeah, that does sound like you. You'll be like, oh, this Russian so-and-so, was talking about, like, philosopher was talking about this. And I appreciate it. I tease you, but I appreciate it. But what it helped me realize then was like, oh, where's the path of least resistance right now? Like, where is it headed? And I realized that a lot of people were wanting to focus on the nature part, less about the art part when it came to getting just more interaction on YouTube that way. It was a bigger, huge funnel instead of this tiny little funnel of people that had to like art and nature facts. It made that funnel really tiny. And so I wasn't getting as much people in there.
We talked about you were doing Brave Kids Art Club. So
yes.
Cut off the brave part, but if you just say, the rest of it makes it into a demographic, right? You can get kids. That's a demographic who also doesn't have money. Their parents do. So you have to figure out how to get their parents to give you money, or how to get advertisements in front of kids in a way that is legal. Kids, art. Okay. So now you got like the Venn diagram of kids and art. And that's like a little tiny spot there. So you're like, okay, how can we broaden that out? Oh, and then you were putting nature into it. And so you had 3 circles: kids, art, and nature. And you get this very small little area that will work. And
because it was all the things I cared about. Like, that's why I started it, because that was that's what I loved as a kid.
Great.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunately really tight. And so you have to figure out how you're going to like loosen it. I mean, and I'm sure there's some brilliant people out there
find a way to make that work.
That can make it work. And I think that also, like, that's part of your genius too, is people love like uncompromising things. So like oftentimes I think the things we love the most are completely uncompromising. Like, I heard that originally they tried making Red Bull and it was like very sweet and delicious. And it did this. I might be getting this all messed up, and it did horrible.
They made it. Keep going.
They made it taste nastier, and it did better. And I heard the same thing with Diet Coke. They actually apparently could make Diet Coke taste very much like real Coca-Cola, and they gave it to people and told them it's 0 calories as Diet Coke, and it didn't do well in tests or whatever. And they realized they had to add a bit of bitterness to it because that is more convincing. That it's a little bitter, and it has 0 calories, but of course the price is that it's a little bit bitter,
because then it's bad for me.
Right. So it's like it's uncompromising and getting to 0 calories, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So like like I think there's something special about like when something is just uncompromising, like, and we love it because of it. It's just harder to win sometimes.
That's what you told me too. You even said that. You're like, hey, look, I'm going to give you some advice. You could do what you want with it. Like, you could keep this precious little thing that you've created exactly how you've created it and exactly the way that you want it to be spread out to the world. And that's totally fine. You just have to be okay.
They could be like Montessori kids or something like that. The parents would do Montessori. Like they could be paying you like $5,000 a pop, and it could kill it.
Yeah.
It's just hard. It's just a little harder.
Yeah, it's harder. So it's just, what did you want to do? You want to try to take that risk on of just continually going and going and going and trying to figure out how to make that work? Or you could look at where the river's headed and be like, a lot more people are interested in the nature part. So why not embrace that more? So I didn't give up on art. That's not what this is getting at. Like, it's Brave Kids Club, but we learn about the world around us through art, storytelling, science, all these other things. There's lots of different ways, and art's one of those ways of learning the world around us. So yeah, it shifted. It was really hard for me to get rid of that. But once I did, now all of a sudden it opened up, and I didn't see where this was going to go, but it ended up being like my nature videos are going viral on YouTube, and I went from 20,000.
You did do that, and now you are seeing.
Oh, I went from 20,000 subscribers to my channel, and after really embracing it and just only posting I posted art stuff in there too, but predominantly nature shorts. Within a year, I went to almost 200,000 subscribers.
You're almost 200,000 now?
It's like 190,000.
Okay, so we talked about this, and like I actually didn't know. Like I didn't know if I was just like completely wrong about that or not. And obviously, I was just discussing with you. You implemented the whole thing, so this is all you doing stuff. But you did that, and because of that, mentally, it did end up freeing you up, where you felt like I can now do more nature stuff, and I don't have to figure out how to tie drawing into every single one of these to make it work. You did experience that.
I felt very limited. Yeah, I felt very limited because those things, I was like, I had it in my head. The same thing with this podcast, I had a very specific view of this podcast, and then you came in and helped me shape it into something that's, I think, is so much better. But yeah, that's where the plaque came from. Like immediately after that, now it's almost doubled since I got that plaque 3 months ago. I don't remember how long ago it was. But yeah, it grew like crazy, and I'm still really enjoying creating nature content and then some art content in there as well. And I have a feeling once I get people there, I can start introducing more art and nature stuff. And, but yeah, anyways, I'm getting off topic. But
that's kind of adjusting for your risk too, because then you can be like, I can try the art stuff, but I could also do nature stuff. I could also make stuffies and sell stuffies for a living if I want.
It freed me up.
Yeah, you could do whatever you want, and it would make sense for it. Yeah, I can.
So taking a small risk allowed me to take even more risks. So.
And probably eliminated so much bandwidth as you tried to jigsaw puzzle some things together.
I would spend hours and hours making each full length episode for Brave Kids Club, because I had to come up with the drawing, break it down into steps. I had to record it all. I created this fancy lighting equipment, and I did a whole bunch of stuff to make this feel like a real show. And I realized I just was not getting much interaction with it. And then I did these shorts. It takes me 2 hours in an evening. I do them twice a week, and it's just footage of stuff that I shoot anywhere I walk around. I do a voiceover of it. That's how it's so quick. I don't have to think about it in the moment. I just take lots and lots of video footage of something, and I come home and it gets 5 million views as opposed to 200 views over 6 months. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. You don't get paid as much. YouTube Kids doesn't pay out very much anyways, so it's not the goal. The goal is to get more people knowing about Brave Kids Club and interacting with it. So yeah, it provided a lot of opportunities.
That's to the thing we were discussing about the money oftentimes comes later in these kind of things.
Yes.
And you have to be willing to do it. Like right now, you build equity and trust in a group of people, and you oftentimes have to figure out how the payday comes later. But wow, that's amazing. Well, what do you think what do you think the takeaway for someone listening would be that they could apply today to their life?
I think thinking about risk completely differently. Like, I think what you were saying, like, just as long, I love the analogy of being able to just stay in the game. I mean, that's such great advice, because it's like, is this going to knock you out of the game or keep you in the game? Think of that. And then time is the biggest risk, I feel like. Giving up your time, because time becomes money, and time becomes, like, it could hurt relationships or whatever. So spending where you spend your time. So when you do have that, like, a lot of people say like, oh, I don't have time because I have a full-time job. Well, I worked my whole evenings for a little while just to build up enough client work that I could quit my job and take another giant risk. But it was risky to do that because, I sacrificed time with my family. I sacrificed, my health by staying up so late, so long. So I think just thinking about risk differently, and thinking about like, you don't know what it's going to turn into. So I like hedging your bets. Try these little things. Just get comfortable taking these little risks, and I feel like you'll be in better shape for it.
And realize that the risks that make people quote unquote successful, whatever you deem that success to be in your career or in art or design, change your definition of risk. Risk does not mean life or death, yes or no, black or white. I exist or I don't exist in this field.
Homeless.
Most of the risk that makes people successful, in fact, I can't even really think of anyone where they took such a dramatic risk that they wouldn't have been in this field anymore had it not worked out. All the people who are gigantic, and I think we both had chances to talk to some of the most successful people in these fields. They did not take existential risks in their careers.
Yeah.
They took very reasonable risks, the equivalent of going to a hot place in the United States and thinking that you would sell ice cream when no one else was. These aren't crazy risks.
Yeah.
You know, there's a risk there, but it's not crazy. And so I think you really have to reframe that for yourself and realize that, like, you don't have to be a profoundly special person to take these risks. They're within reason. Reasonable risks will get you a long way.
That's a great, I love that you said that. I think it's a great way to wrap it up, because I feel like there's a lot of people that feel like I'm just a risk averse person, right? Like some people, I'm going to call my brother out, my younger brother. He says that all the time. You know, he says like, that's just not me. Like I'm not a risk taker. And I'm like, but it's not a risk if it's like, it's not going to end you. You're okay if you wanted to start this little side business. Yeah, it might risk time, but why not just try it out and just see where it goes? Because you might be a lot happier in the long run. It might just be a home run. Otherwise, you tried. If you don't do it, you're not going to, there's no chance, right? It's you miss 100% of the shots you don't take thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's not even a risk. That's just a guarantee.
Yeah, that's a
Nothing will happen, and you can expect no change. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks for listening. Hopefully our ramblings helped you. And if you have any thoughts on that, wherever you're listening to this, comment and let us know what you're feeling about it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, you guys. We'll talk to you next week.